whispers crawl beneath the skin, a shadow's grin.
The Heretics Library. The white cough came with the spring thaw. It began as a dry rattle in the chest of old man Caleb, the woodcutter. Within a week, his skin had taken on the peculiar, translucent pallor that gave the sickness its name, a map of blue veins beneath papery flesh. By the second week, the village of Elmsford was a chorus of wretched coughing, a sound like reeds snapping in a bitter wind. The dead were wrapped in plain linen and burned beyond the stone wall, their pyres sending greasy smoke into an indifferent sky. Brother Anselm moved among the sick, a splash of dark wool against the blanched faces. He was a scholar of the Order of St. Ardra, more accustomed to copying medicinal texts than practicing their contents. His hands, stained with ink, were clumsy with the mortar and pestle. His prayers, fervent as they were, felt like stones dropped into a deep, silent well. He administered willow bark tea, honeyed thyme, and lungwort poultices. They soothed, but they did not cure. The white cough was a relentless scribe, writing its conclusion in every household. It was in the third week, as he knelt beside the dying miller's daughter, a child of no more than 6 summers, that his faith in accepted knowledge cracked. Her breath was a shallow, whistling struggle. Her small hand, cold as clay, lay in his. Her mother, face gaunt with exhaustion and grief, whispered, "There is nothing more, is there, brother?" The question hung in the air, heavier than the incense he swung. It was then that the forbidden thought, long suppressed, rose in his mind like a black bubble from a deep pond. The library. The library of forbidden wisdom. It was the reason his small monastic cell was perched on this remote mountainside. The Order of St. Ardra were not just scholars, they were jailers. Their charge was to guard the fortified stone building carved into the cliff face a mile from the monastery, to ensure its contents never saw the light of day. Knowledge too dangerous, too corrosive for mortal souls was entombed there. Heresies, blasphemies, the mad geometries that could unmake reason. To enter was a sin. To use its contents, an unpardonable one. But what was a sin weighed against the life of a child, against an entire village? That night, under a moon like a sliver of bone, Anselm took the key from the abbot's locked chest. It was iron, cold and heavy, shaped like a twisted tree. The walk to the library was a waking nightmare. Every cough from the village huts behind him felt like an accusation. The path was steep, lined with warnings carved into the rock in a dead language. The wind through the pines sounded like the rustle of pages. The library was not a welcoming place of learning. It was a fortress, a block of fitted stone with a single iron-reinforced door. No windows. It looked less like a repository of knowledge and more like a tomb. With a hand that trembled, Anselm fit the key. The lock turned with a sound that echoed far too loudly in the silent night. The door swung inward on silent hinges. The air that washed over him was not the damp cold of the mountain, but a dry, preserved chill, carrying the scent of dust, old leather, and something else, faint and sweetly organic, like dried flowers pressed too long. The interior was a vast, shadowy cavern, shelves rising into darkness. Thousands of volumes, folios, and scrolls lined them, a silent, waiting army. The only light came from a single, guttering oil lamp on a massive desk of black wood at the room's heart, and behind the desk sat the librarian. He was ancient, so old his skin seemed like parchment stretched over his skull. He wore simple robes, and his eyes, when they lifted from the book before him, were milky with cataracts, yet they pinned Anselm with unnerving precision. "Brother Anselm," the old man said, his voice a dry life rustle, The key was not meant to be used. "The village," Anselm stammered, his voice swallowed by the immense quiet. "The white cough, they are dying." "All men die," the librarian replied, not unkindly. "It is the one certainty the library does not dispute. There must be something here, a cure, a treatment our accepted texts do not know." The librarian was silent for a long moment, his finger tracing a line on the open page before him. "There is knowledge here for every ailment of body, mind, and soul. Knowledge that can rebuild flesh, reshape thought, reorder the very stars. But knowledge," he looked up, those cloudy eyes sharpening, "has a price. It is not a coin you pay once. It is a debt that accrues interest in the currency of the self. Are you prepared to pay?" Anselm thought of the miller's daughter's hand, growing colder. "I must try." A slow nod. "The section on physiological corruptions is along the west wall, third aisle from the left. Seek the humoral miasmas. But remember, brother, you are not borrowing a book. You are engaging in a dialogue, and the authors here are most persuasive." Heart hammering, Anselm took the lamp the librarian proffered and moved into the labyrinth of shelves. The silence was absolute, broken only by the soft scrape of his sandals on the stone floor. The books were not arranged by any system he recognized. Their spines bore titles in languages dead and imagined, symbols that hurt the eye to follow. He found the section. The books here were smaller, more utilitarian in appearance. His eyes scanned the spines until he found it, On the Humors of Miasma by Alexis of Thrace. The name meant nothing to him. He pulled the volume from the shelf. Its weight was strange. It was lighter than a book of its size should be. The cover was a smooth, pale leather devoid of grain. As his thumb brushed it, a shiver passed through him. The texture was unsettlingly uniform, poreless, like he pushed the thought away. He was imagining things, fueled by fear and superstition. He carried the book back to the desk. The librarian watched him, saying nothing. Anselm opened the cover. The pages were a fine, creamy vellum, the ink a faded brown. The script was precise, elegant. It described the white cough with chilling accuracy, nomming it a congelation of the aerial phlegm within the pulmonary channels. The proposed cure was a distillation of the root of mountain nightshade, combined with a precise, rhythmic prayer of purification directed not to God or any saint, but to the unseen winds of dissolution and renewal. It was blasphemous. It was also terrifyingly specific. The prayer's syllables felt alien on his tongue as he muttered them under his breath. "You have what you seek," the librarian stated. "The price for this fragment will be collected in due course." Anselm did not wait. He fled the library, the book clutched to his chest, the key burning in his pocket. He did not look back. The mountain nightshade was found in a shaded crevice, just as the book described. The distillation process was complex, taking a full day and night. He worked in a fever of hope and dread, chanting the heretical prayer under his breath as he boiled and filtered. The resulting liquid was clear, with a faint, silvery sheen. He went to the miller's house first. The child was barely conscious. With the mother's desperate permission, he tilted her head back and let 3 drops fall onto her tongue. The effect was not instantaneous. For an hour, nothing. Then the terrible, whistling rattle in her chest softened. The blue tinge faded from her lips. By dawn, she was sleeping peacefully, her breath a soft, regular sigh. The fever had broken. A miracle, the word swept through Elmsford like a cleansing wind. Anselm, weary to his bones, felt a surge of triumphant joy. He had done it. He had harnessed forbidden knowledge for good. Perhaps the librarian's warnings were merely the superstitions of an old man guarding relics. He administered the cure to the next worst case and the next. Each time, the silver drops and the strange prayer worked their magic. The village began to hope. Anselm slept that second night in his own cell, a deep, dreamless sleep of utter exhaustion. On the third night, the dreams came. He was standing in a sun-baked square in a city of white stone. He was not himself. He was a man named Alexis, his hands stained not with ink but with the fluids of dissection. He was speaking passionately to a crowd, holding aloft a diseased lung preserved in brine. "The humors are not punishments," he cried. "They are natural processes. We can understand them. We can treat them." The crowd's murmurs turned to roars of outrage. Soldiers grabbed him. He was dragged to a stone platform. His arguments, his proofs, his careful diagrams meant nothing. They stripped him of his robes. The sentence for denying the divine origin of disease was flaying. The dream did not spare him a single sensation. The cold bite of the knife at his hairline, the hot, tearing agony as skin was peeled from muscle, the unbelievable, shrieking pain that was beyond screaming. He felt it all, every inch, every moment, until the darkness mercifully took him. Brother Anselm woke in his cell, bolting upright with a strangled gasp. His body was slick with cold sweat. Phantom fire raced across every inch of his skin. He clutched at his arms, his face, expecting to find raw meat. He was whole, but the memory of the pain was etched into his nerves, vivid and nauseating. It was just a dream, he told himself, a product of guilt and stress. The cure was working. That was all that mattered. But as the days passed, a new symptom appeared in the convalescing villagers. A stiffness of the joints, a locking of the fingers that began to spread. The book from Alexis of Thrace had no answer for this. It was, Anselm realized with a sinking heart, a secondary phase of the disease. The library held the answer. It would have to be paid for. He returned to the stone fortress as the sun dipped below the peaks. The librarian was at his desk, as if he had never moved. He did not look up as Anselm entered. "You have returned," the Leifrussel voice observed. "The first payment has been made. Are you ready for the second?" "What payment?" Anselm demanded, his voice sharper than he intended. "I had a nightmare, that is all." The librarian slowly closed his book. "A nightmare is a memory, Brother Anselm, a memory of the book's author. You did not just read his words, you experienced his conviction, and to enact his cure, you had to channel a fragment of his heresy. You believed for a moment in the natural, not the divine, origin of disease. That belief has a consequence. The soul bound within that volume, it shared its fate with you." Anselm stared, horror dawning. The soft, poreless cover. The books, they are not just records. "They are reliquaries," the librarian corrected softly. "The pages are vellum, yes, but the binding, that is the flesh of the heretic. The text is transcribed from the final, coherent thoughts as the sentence was carried out. Their knowledge is preserved, but it is locked. To access it, you must perform an act of sympathetic heresy. You must believe, however briefly, as they believed. You must walk a step in their shoes, and in doing so, you walk a step towards their fate." "This is an abomination," Anselm whispered. "It is a conservation of knowledge," the librarian said. "Now, the arthritic lock. You will need the red volume on the second shelf of the fifth aisle, The Geometries of Mortal Clay by Veridia." Numb, Anselm retrieved the book. This cover was different, darker, with a subtle, wrinkled texture like the palm of a laborer's hand. He opened it. The The pages were filled not with text, but with intricate, interlocking geometric patterns, equations that described the body as a mere machine of levers and pulleys. The cure was not a potion, but a ritual. He was to spread wood ash on a flat stone, and using a specific algorithm derived from the ratios of the human form, draw a precise sigil. The afflicted were to place their hands upon the lines. Again it worked. The stiffness in the villagers' hands melted away as if oiled. Their gratitude was profound. Anselm accepted it with a hollow smile. That night he did not sleep. He fought it, drinking bitter tea to stay awake. But just before dawn, exhaustion overthrew him. He was Veridia. She stood in a torchlit vault beneath a great cathedral, explaining her diagrams to hooded men. The body is a temple not of spirit, but of sublime mechanics, she insisted, her chalk scraping across a slate. Prayer does not mend a broken lever, understanding does. The men were not students, they were inquisitors. Her sentence was burning. Anselm felt the coarse hemp of the sack they put over her head, smelled the oil they doused the pyre with, felt the first blistering kiss of the flames, rising from her feet, consuming her life's work and then her flesh in a roaring, agonizing inferno. He woke screaming, beating at his smoldering blankets, the smell of cooked meat in his nostrils. It faded, leaving only the cold terror. It was real. The librarian spoke the truth. Each cure was a transaction. He was bartering pieces of his own orthodoxy and paying for them with the remembered torment of the damned. The village was nearly healed, but a final, cruel symptom emerged. A shadow behind the eyes, a deep, lethargic despair that settled on those who had been most severely ill. They lay in their beds, listless, losing the will to eat or drink. The white cough had attacked the body. This melancholy attacked the soul. Anselm knew what he had to do. The weight of it crushed him. He knelt in the monastery chapel before the simple wooden icon of Saint Ardra and prayed for guidance, for strength, for a sign. Only silence answered. The only path forward led back into the dark. The librarian was waiting. On the black desk lay a single volume. It was larger than the others, bound in what appeared to be slabs of dark, iron-hard leather, riveted together with tarnished metal. It had no visible title. The final symptom, the librarian said, the despair. This is the root of the sickness, the spiritual malaise that invited the physical one. The cure is within, but the price, Brother Anselm, is the highest. With trembling hands, Anselm opened the ironclad tome. The pages were thick, rough parchment. The writing inside was not a single hand, but a chorus of them, layers of text arguing, contradicting, merging. It spoke of the soul not as a divine spark, but as a self-created story, a narrative woven from experience and belief. The cure for the despair was not a medicine or a sigil. It was a renunciation. To sever the link of collective despair, he, the healer, had to publicly sever a link of collective faith. He had to stand before the gathered, healed village and deny a fundamental tenet, the divine mercy of God. He had to state clearly and without ambiguity that their salvation was their own doing, that no heavenly hand had guided his. It was the ultimate heresy that bound the myriad authors of this terrible book. I cannot, Anselm breathed, pushing the book away as if it were red hot. This is not saving them. This is damning us all. The previous cures are conditional, the librarian said, his milky eyes unblinking. They are sustained by the final act. Without it, they will unravel. The cough will return. The stiffness will return, and it will be worse, for it will carry the bitterness of hope betrayed. The debt must be paid in full, or the contract is void. You are a demon, Anselm spat. I am a librarian, the old man replied. I merely facilitate the exchange. The choice has always been yours." Anselm took the monstrous book. It seemed to leach the warmth from his hands. He returned to a village on the brink of joy. They saw his face, ashen and haunted, and their celebrations died. "Gather in the square," he told them, his voice flat. "At sunset, there is one final blessing." The sun bled out over the mountains, staining the sky the color of a bruise. The people of Elmsford gathered, healthy but wary, their eyes still shadowed by the lingering despair. Anselm stood on the steps of the tithe barn, the ironclad book heavy in his arms. He looked at their faces, the miller holding his now healthy daughter, old man Caleb, the blacksmith, the weaver. He had saved their bodies. Now he was to poison their souls. The words of the renunciation burned in his mind. All he had to do was speak them, perform the final blasphemy, seal the cure with a lie that would damn him and shatter them. He opened his mouth, but the lie would not come. It stuck in his throat, a foul, indigestible lump. He was a monk, a man of God, however faltering. He could not do this. Then from the edge of the crowd, the librarian appeared. He leaned on a staff, a silent, expectant specter, a reminder of the contract. Anselm's gaze swept over the villagers again. He saw their fear, their trust, their fragile hope, and he understood. There was a third path. It was not the path of blind faith, nor was it the path of utter renunciation. It was the path of terrible, burdensome truth. Well, he took a deep, shaking breath. "My people," he began, his voice quiet but carrying in the still air, "I have not brought you a blessing." A murmur rippled through the crowd. "I brought you a cure, but it did not come from God. It did not come from the sanctioned prayers of our order." He held up the ironclad book. "It came from this. It came from a place of forbidden knowledge, a library where the books are bound in the skin of heretics and written with their dying thoughts." Shocked gasps, cries of denial. "The cure for your bodies required me to use blasphemous prayers," he continued, the words pouring out now, a confession he could no longer contain. "To draw heretical sigils. The knowledge worked. It saved you. But it was not holy. It was condemned. And by using it, I have condemned myself." The miller's wife cried out, "Brother, no." "The final condition of your healing," Anselm said, his voice breaking, "was that I stand before you and deny God's mercy. To say your salvation came from man alone. I cannot say that, for I do not know where salvation truly comes from. But I know this, the sin is mine. The trespass into the forbidden is mine. The compact with this awful knowledge is mine alone." He turned and faced the librarian, who watched with a curious tilt of his head. "The debt is mine. The heresy is on my soul, not theirs. I offer my own faith, my own place in the light as the final binding for this cure. Let their health be sealed by my exile. Let their peace be paid for by my damnation. Is that not a price your library will accept?" The silence that followed was immense. The villagers stared, tears on many faces, confusion on others. The librarian's dry, papery lips curved into the faintest of smiles. It was not a warm smile. It was a smile of profound, clinical satisfaction. "A novel interpretation," the old man whispered, yet his voice reached every ear. "The heresy of self-sacrificial assumption. Yes, the contract is fulfilled. The cure is permanent." As he said the words, the ironclad book in Anselm's arms crumbled. It did not fall apart as dust, but seemed to dissolve into a fine, dark smoke that dissipated on the evening breeze. The weight was gone. The librarian turned and walked away, disappearing into the deepening twilight as if he had never been. In the days that followed, the despair lifted from the villagers. True health, robust and unquestioned, returned to Elmsford, but Anselm was shunned, not out of malice, but out of a deep, superstitious fear. He had trafficked with the damned. He had confessed to unspeakable acts. The abbot, upon learning of the use of the key, had no choice. The sentence was excommunication and perpetual exile. On a gray morning, with a small satchel containing only a crust of bread, a waterskin, and his writing kit, Brother Anselm walked past the stone wall of Elmsford for the last time. No one saw him off. He was a ghost already. He walked for miles, feeling neither the chill nor the path beneath his feet. He was empty, a vessel poured out. He was damned, but the village lived. It was a cold equation, but he had chosen it. As dusk approached, he sat on a fallen log by a stream to rest. He reached into his satchel for the bread. His fingers brushed against something else, something that had not been there before. It was soft, pliable, and cool. He drew it out. It was a book, small, slender, exquisitely bound in a fine, creamy vellum that was utterly blank. No title, no text. Puzzled, he opened it. The pages were smooth and empty. As he watched, holding his breath, a line of text began to form on the first page. It did not appear as ink laid down by a pen, but seemed to well up from the page itself, in a familiar, precise script. His script. The words formed one after another, in his own handwriting. A treatise on the ethics of salvation, by Anselm of Elmsford. He stared, comprehension dawning with a wave of dizzying horror and a strange, terrible clarity. The phantom pains from the flaying, the searing memory of the flames. They had not just been warnings, they had been preparations, an education in suffering and conviction. The library did not just preserve dead heretics, it cultivated new ones. He had not just paid a price, he had become the price. His life, his crisis of faith, his defiant, self-damning choice, it was all new material. His soul was not damned to hellfire. It was curated, bound, and placed on a shelf. He was not a borrower. He was the newest, living volume. A profound warmth began to emanate from the blank book, not a physical heat, but the warmth of a thought fully realized, a truth unwilling to be silenced. It spread up his arm into his hollow chest. It was not comforting. It was terrifyingly alive. He looked back in the direction of the hidden library, then down at the book in his hands, where more words were now flowing onto the page, writing themselves from the very core of his being. He had sought a cure for the body. He had found a purpose for his soul, however blasphemous, and his work, it seemed, was just beginning. He closed the cover, the fine vellum smooth under his thumb. He placed the book carefully back into his satchel, stood up, and turned not towards the roads of men, but deeper into the wild, uncharted woods. The path ahead was unwritten, but he was no longer just the author of his confession. He was becoming its permanent, bound testament, and somewhere in a fortress of stone and silence, a space on a shelf waited for him.
Shut